Good evening, everyone. Good evening from Scotland and etc. So, welcome to a Zoom discussion with one of my experts, and this is another discussion. I want to introduce everyone to William Parry, who has been on a panel discussion several months ago, and I felt that there were quite a lot of panelists, and we couldn't have a deep discussion uh, about the Valsalva hypothesis, etc. method, and I wanted a more in-depth discussion. So I've invited Bill to come back, and he has very kindly agreed to come back, and for that I am very grateful. Grateful. Just want to give a quick intro about Bill. Again, so William Parry is a licensed speech language pathologist who previously overcame his own stuttering to become a successful trial lawyer. He received his law degree from the University of Pennsylvania Law School, where he was an editor of the Law Review. He earned his master's degree in speech, language, and hearing science from Temple University. He is certified by the American Speech Language Hearing Association and is licensed in Pennsylvania and more than a dozen other states. For the past dozen years, he has provided Valsalva stuttering therapy by video conferencing where permitted by law. After struggling most of his life with severe stuttering, Parry became frustrated with existing theories and therapies, which had not helped him to either understand or control his stuttering. Consequently, he began his own research and experimentation, which resulted in his Valsalva hypothesis, published in the Journal of Fluency Disorders in December 1985, and a new therapeutic approach. This dramatically improved his fluency, which opened up his legal career. Parry founded the Philadelphia area chapter of the National Stuttering Association in 1985 and led its support group meetings for 17 years. He served for 6 years on the board of directors of the National Stuttering Association and as chair of its Advocacy Committee. He has given workshops and presentations on the Valsalva hypothesis at national conferences of the NSA in the United States, the British Stammering Association, and the International Stuttering Association. With that said, I want to formally welcome Bill to the session. Just as a structure, I don't have anything in mind. So I think if you can just have an overview of the method, and then I have had a couple of questions from people who can't be here, and then I'll ask those questions. Does that seem okay?
Okay, thank you very much for the introduction. I know it's very popular now to think that stuttering is a neurological problem with no actual known cause or cure, and that all people can do is accept their stuttering and stutter on purpose and all of that, and that's all they can do. No one's really thinking about stopping their stuttering anymore. Although stuttering is a very annoying and very inconvenient thing to do, there are many people who feel the stuttering blocks and they don't know exactly what it is, and it leads them into a struggle behavior, and they're doing all of the things which we recognize as stuttering. My view is that people that stutter, most people that stutter, have the ability to speak normally. The problem is not that they lack the ability to do it, but their speech neurology may have certain deficiencies which make their speech more susceptible to interference. So the problem is not a lack of ability to speak. It's an interference with the ability that they already have. Many people can speak normally 90% of the time. However, when they have to say something important, they feel their speech is suddenly blocked. They feel that an upcoming word is blocked as if by a brick wall even before they try to say it. What they feel is this overwhelming urge to try to force the word out. And the more they try to force, the more it blocks. Then after they force for a while, the word may come out when they stop forcing. However, this leaves them with a false impression that the forcing helped them get the word out. And so that perpetuates that behavior. And the next time the word comes along, they try to force even harder to get it out. My view on it is that this is an interference. And the interference has three components. There's a psychological component, there's a neurological component, and there's a physiological component. All of these develop at various times in a person's life. Sometimes it can be at a very early age, but I know many people who don't start stuttering until they're in middle school. And there's no real explanation for that. The experts on stuttering are not able to explain why some people would start stuttering later in life. However, my Valsalva hypothesis explains all of the manifestations of stuttering, as well as the paradoxes of stuttering, of why people that stutter are able to speak normally in certain situations. All right, first thing is the psychological aspect would be the anticipation that speech is going to be difficult, or that certain words are going to be hard to say, or that stuttering is a terrible thing, and it's very important to make a good impression by not stuttering. All of these fears stimulate a part of the brain called the amygdala. The amygdala is like our bodyguard. Its purpose is to protect us from danger. So when something that's physically dangerous, we become aware of that, the amygdala immediately responds by triggering stress hormones and what's known as the fight, flight, freeze response. The fight, flight, freeze response through the release of stress hormones makes us ready to fight harder, to run faster, to escape the danger, and if neither is possible, to freeze. All right, so this is, here's an example of it. Let's imagine that there is a prehistoric man who's walking across the plains of Africa, and he sees a lion. Now he knows if the lion attacks, he's in grave danger. So his amygdala immediately responds. It triggers the release of stress hormones. Because if the lion attacks, he can't very well fight the lion or outrun the lion. So the freeze response kicks in. The freeze response makes his body immobile. He freezes in place, so he will be less noticeable to the lion. But it's also important that the lion doesn't hear him. So the freeze response also suppresses his voice. The next thing that happens is that the fight response, it sends an effort impulse to his Valsalva mechanism in order to stiffen the trunk of his body by doing a Valsalva maneuver. So this will stiffen the trunk of his body so his arms will have a stable base on which to fight off the lion if it attacked. The Valsalva maneuver is done by inhaling air, squeezing with the abdomen in order to push up on the diaphragm to increase the air pressure in the lungs. In the meantime, the throat, the larynx, will squeeze tightly in order to block the airflow. And since all parts of the Valsalva mechanism are neurologically coordinated, the greater the air pressure, the tighter the closure in order to keep the air in. But the same kind of thing happens during speech when a person blocks. Okay, the first thing would be the negative view about stuttering, that speech is difficult, that it's important not to stutter, to make a good impression. All these things increase the reactivity of the brain's amygdala. So the amygdala more or less treats the upcoming word that's associated with stuttering as if it were an enemy. And it initiates the stress hormones and the fight, flight, freeze response. The first thing that happens is the stress hormones suppress the brain's motor program for voicing the loudest part of the word, the part that an enemy would be most likely to hear. And that part is the vowel sound. If it's a multisyllable word, it would be the vowel sound of the stressed syllable. That's the loudest part. So without the ability to say the loudest part of the word, the vowel sound, you can't say the word. The word is blocked. For example, if I was going to go to the restaurant and order a pizza, now at home, if I'm alone, I could say pizza, pizza, pizza perfectly well. However, if I go to the restaurant and my intention is to make a good impression with the waiter by not stuttering, and the waiter asks me, "Well, you have?" and the word pizza is associated with stuttering, the amygdala will trigger the stress hormones, and they will suppress my brain's ability to form the motor program for voicing E. Without the E, I can't say pizza. Now, I can form the P. The P you can hardly hear, so that's not a dangerous sound. So my lips can go in the position of the P, but I can't say the E, so I'm stuck on the P. And now I got this effort impulse to build up air pressure to try to force out the word pizza as if it was a physical object. And I will press hard while I'm doing a Valsalva maneuver to try to force out P. And the more I force on the P, the tighter my lips close in order to block off the air pressure. Now I could force on that. I could say something else like hamburger, because hamburger is not what I want. It's not associated with stuttering. It's not what I intend to say. So I'm blocking on the P. I'm building up air pressure. The greater the air pressure, the tighter I force. And so it forces more and more until I finally discharge this effort impulse. When I discharge the effort impulse, I no longer have the urge to force, and now I can say pizza. So it leaves me with a false impression that forcing helped to get the word out. And this perpetuates my tendency to force, to try to get words out. Okay, there's a lot of things that I can say about that. There's many details of it. I mean, there's many variations. Imagine a man, he can't say pizza. He wants the pizza. So he points to the menu. He points to pizza on the menu. And the waiter says, "Oh, you want a pizza?" Once the waiter says pizza, the spell is broken. And now the word pizza is no longer invested with importance. It's now meaningless because the waiter already knows you want a pizza. So the man cannot say, "Yeah, pizza, pizza, I want a pizza." Okay. Okay, so that's the basic thing. We have the psychological aspect, which is the fear of stuttering, or it could be the belief that it's important to make a good impression by not stuttering. So we have the intention to try hard not to stutter. So words associated with stuttering or situations that are associated with stuttering are going to increase the amygdala's reactivity. So when they come along, the amygdala reacts. It tries to help us. It's our friend. It tries to help us by releasing stress hormones. And then the stress hormones initiate the fight, flight, freeze response. The freeze response freezes our ability to voice the vowel sound, without which we're not able to say the word. Then we get an effort impulse to perform a Valsalva maneuver in order to stiffen our body. Now we feel that what we're trying to do is to force the word out, but what we're actually doing is a Valsalva maneuver. And that blocks the word even more. If it's a word that starts with a vowel sound like apple, the block may be in the larynx, where something called the glottal stop turns into effort closure. And so now we're forcing. If it's a word like pizza or boy or table, those consonants are called stop consonants. They stop the airflow, and that may completely block the air. If it's a word that doesn't, if it's a consonant that doesn't completely block the air, well, then we'll get a prolongation. Now, there's various situations where we don't stutter. Okay, for example, when we whisper, it's usually much easier to whisper a word than to say the word out loud. Remember, when we're whispering, we're not phonating. So if we're whispering, the enemy, the hypothetical enemy, wouldn't be able to hear us. For example, with the lion example, if the man had a friend there, he could probably whisper to the friend, "Shh, there's a lion over there," because the lion wouldn't hear it. So that wouldn't be blocked. If you're not able to hear your own voice, you're usually more fluent. They used to have something called the Edinburgh masker, thing with earphones, and there's something strapped to your throat. And when you started to talk, it would generate a loud buzz so you couldn't hear yourself. And when you couldn't hear yourself, you're usually more fluent. In fact, I knew someone who was a very severe stutterer, and the only way he could talk was using the Edinburgh masker. But look at that. You can't hear yourself talk. If you can't hear yourself talk, then you're not going to imagine that that the hypothetical enemy, the lion or whatever, is going to be able to hear it either. So if you can't hear yourself talk, there's nothing to block. And you can go ahead and you can talk all you want because the amygdala can't hear it either. Now, if you're with a group of people and you're reciting something like a Pledge of Allegiance all in unison, people who stutter generally speak normally when they're doing that. But now their speech is being blocked by everybody else's speaking. So they are mainly hidden by all the other people talking. And so there's no reason to block there. Okay, now one other thing is people with stutter always are able to sing okay. Now, what is the reason? If you're singing, what is your intention? Your intention is to voice the melody. And the melody is carried by the vowel sound. I'm singing in the rain. So if your intention is to voice the melody on the vowel sound, your brain is always prepared for you to phonate the vowel sounds. And so you're able to phonate the vowel sound because your intention is just to voice the melody, and therefore there's no reason for the amygdala to block your ability to phonate the vowel. Okay, one other thing that happens, it's a very common thing. A person who stutters goes to a speech therapist and learns a so-called fluency technique. Now, a fluency technique doesn't matter what it is. The person is in the therapy room and he's able to use the technique and he's using it perfectly well and not blocking. Because while he's in the therapy room, his intention is simply to show the speech therapist how well he's using the technique. But then he goes outside the therapy room to talk to other people, and suddenly the technique doesn't work. And he finds himself blocking more than ever. And why is that? Because his intention now has changed. Now his intention is to use the technique to speak fluently. It's like his amygdala is saying, oh, you want to be fluent? I can help you with that. And it tries to help by triggering the stress hormones. And the stress hormones do all of the things to block his ability to voice the loudest part, which is the vowel sound, and the effort impulse to try to do the Valsalva maneuver to force the word out. And he's going through all of these struggle behaviors because his intention has changed. Now he's trying to be fluent. So one of the things that's important is to change your intention in talking. The intention in talking should not be to try to make a good impression by not stuttering. If I'm going to the restaurant to order the pizza, my intention should not be to make a good impression to the waiter. My intention should be to get a pizza. And that's all I'm going to get. So my role is that I'm an adult, an adult customer who wants a pizza. I'm not a child. I'm not speaking to some kind of judge figure. I'm just talking to the waiter. His job is to take my order and bring me a pizza. Stuttering is irrelevant. Fluency is irrelevant. All I want is a pizza. I just order the pizza, it brings me the pizza. I eat the pizza, enjoy it. I pay the waiter. I go about my business, and the whole thing is a non-event. All right, okay. There's a lot of other things we can talk about.
Yes, we can. The fact that just you and me here, I'm going to frame this as a chat between us both, so we can have a rest as well. I made some notes while you were talking, because I know this is what people want to know, and so the first thing I would observe is the speaking block that we get, the block in phonation. that is a separate thing from the forcing, because forcing is what we do to try and come out of the block. If I'm wrong, just stop me. Now, so the reason people force, I think, is because they don't know any other way. Instinctively, it's a very natural thing to do, isn't it? If something won't move, you force it. So if this voice won't move, naturally we rely on brute strength. But as you and I have discussed many times, effort and forcing is not the answer, because you cannot force, because words are not things to be forced out. And the other thing is that the feeling of fear or the wrong intention can trigger the amygdala to release the stress hormone. So once we're in the block, it's actually physically impossible to say that word unless we there's two options. My understanding, of course, if I'm wrong, stop me. The the first thing is Billy, give me a second. I'm going to just close my door because there's some noise. Give me a second.
Sure.
Okay. Hi. So yeah, where was I? Yeah, if we're in the block, for example, if we're blocking on the word, I'm going to start with a word with a vowel. Say on the word, which I had a strong block on this morning, actually, when someone asked me a question. And I'm going to say this word. The word was Aberdeen. So if I'm in a situation in for example, a crowded cafeteria and I'm asked a question and I have to say Aberdeen and I can't physically say this. So some kind of procedure has to be done according to the uh, Valsalva method. So which leads me on to the actual question that I've been asked to ask you. What is the actual procedure for coming out of a block?
Okay, it's something that I call the word recovery response. Okay, the first thing is when stress hormones are released by the amygdala and they fill your brain, they cloud your thinking, and people who are in that situation forget everything they learned in speech therapy. All they can do is that which is instinctive, habitual, or very, very well learned. So that's why you've got to practice, practice, and practice. Everyone who has to perform under pressure has to practice the thing that they have to do. So it becomes second nature, and they don't even have to think about it because they can't think. All right. So, okay, let's say you come to the word Aberdeen. Ha is a vowel sound. That's the key vowel. Is that the syllable that you would emphasize? Aberdeen? Or would it be Aberdeen?
I think in the Scottish accent it would be the second syllable. Aberdeen.
Aberdeen?
Aberdeen.
Aberdeen?
Aberdeen. No, sorry, the third syllable. Ed. Aberdeen.
Aberdeen?
Dean. Yeah, the last syllable is the prominent one. Yeah.
Okay, it doesn't matter which one it was. You want to say Aberdeen or you can say Aberdeen. Whatever it was, let's focus on that syllable. Okay. Okay, for some reason, it's associated with stuttering. And the amygdala is trying to help you. So the word Aberdeen is coming along. And the stress hormones suppress the loudest part of the word, which is the stressed syllable. If it's Aberdeen, then it's E. E. Aberdeen. Aberdeen. If you want to do the first syllable, it's which is called an ash. Aberdeen. Yeah. Now, that is what you focus on. You focus on the vowel sound. Now, if you're blocking on Aberdeen, if it's first syllable, your larynx is going to close in order to build up air pressure. It's like you're trying to force out the. However, the vowel sound is not created by your larynx. All your larynx does is you bring together your vocal folds. You relax your abdomen and your diaphragm and your chest, and the air in your lungs automatically comes out and it vibrates the vocal folds. You don't require any effort. You don't require any effort at all. You just relax. Okay, now you shape the with your mouth. You don't try to force it out down here. It's not down here, it's in your mouth. All you make with your larynx is a buzz. And you can make it with melody because there's a muscle down here called the cricothyroid muscle. And that changes the tension of your vocal ligaments, so it changes the pitch. Okay, now meanwhile, you are expressing yourself through your voicing of the vowel sound with inflection. Aberdeen, the name Aberdeen was invented by somebody else. So if you want to say Aberdeen, all you're doing is you're saying something that somebody else invented. However, what you add is the prosody of your speech. You want to say Aberdeen. You want to say it in a friendly way. Or you don't like Aberdeen and you'll say it in a dismissive way. Aberdeen. Oh, Aberdeen. Yeah. Whatever it is, you're expressing yourself through the vowel sound. So one of the psychological things is self-expression. And if you are withholding your self-expression, if you're holding back and you're suppressing your self-expression, you might also be suppressing your ability to voice the vowel sounds. So we let the vowel sound out with inflection and feeling and enthusiasm. Aberdeen. The stress vowel, usually you'd start it with a higher pitch and then go down. Aberdeen. And it's a pleasurable thing. It doesn't require any effort. All the effort in speaking is inhaling when you're not speaking. And then you just relax all the muscles of you to inhale. The air comes out, you bring your vocal fold together, you shape the vowel sound. Aberdeen. No effort at all. It's just very easy. Okay, now the other thing that happens, you're talking about the urge to force. I think the urge to force is more than just a voluntary thing. I think it's a neurological stimulus. It's a part of the fight response. Words are not physical objects that you can force out of the body. Words are melody and movement. I mean, the whole idea in speaking is you have a thought in your brain. You want to convey it to your listener. So what do? You inhale. To inhale, you have a diaphragm, which is a thin muscle between the chest and the abdominal cavity. At rest, it's shaped like a dome. You contract it, it flattens out. That enlarges the chest cavity. Okay, your chest muscles may also raise your rib cage. That expands it even more. The lungs expand along with the chest cavity. So when you do that, you have negative air pressure in your lungs, the air gets sucked in. That is what's going to power your speech. You don't have to do anything. You know, this is like my balloon, you know, all the effort is, okay, you blow up the balloon. The air just comes out all by itself. Vocal folds form a little slit, and the air automatically vibrates it just by relaxing. It requires no effort at all. You can change the pitch by changing the tension of the vocal ligaments. So all of that is very easy. Okay, so you get the vibration. It's a vibrating column of air. It comes up through the mouth. The shape of your mouth forms the vowel sound. Ah, eh, e, oo. It's all determined by the position of your lips and tongue. Ah, eh, e, oo. The lips and tongue make little turbulences, which are the consonants. And what all this produces is vibrating air, vibrations in the air, sound waves. And those sound waves go through the air into your listener's ear. And if he knows your language, his brain will automatically decode the sound waves into words and meaning. And that way, what you were thinking goes into your listener's brain. So that's the way we communicate. If you're treating the word as a thing, it's no longer a word. Word is continuing melody and movement. If you're trying to force, you're not forcing on the consonant or the vowel sound. You're forcing on the consonant, like the P or the B or the T or whatever it is. If you're trying to force out Aberdeen, you're squeezing your larynx to build up air pressure to do the Valsalva maneuver. That doesn't get the phonation out because you need a constant flow of air in order to vibrate the vocal folds. By building up the air pressure, by blocking the air either with your larynx or your mouth, you're stopping the flow of air. Without the flow of air, the air can't vibrate the vocal folds, and you can't do phonation, so you're not making the sound waves. All you're doing is blocking everything up, and you're trying to force with the illusion that you're trying to force out the word. But actually what you're doing is a part of this whole defensive mechanism. It's a part of the fight response. You're building up air pressure so you can use your arms to fight. And you do that until you discharge the effort impulse. And when you discharge the effort impulse, then you can stop forcing. When you stop forcing, well, then the air can flow and you can say the word. But you think that forcing helped to get the word out, when really forcing helped to block the word. The word didn't come out until you stopped forcing. So one of the things we want to do is we want to discharge the effort impulse without interfering with speech. And one of the ways that we can do that is by a muscle that's called the puborectalis muscle. It forms a sling around the bottom of the rectum. Okay, because when you're building up air pressure and you're going to do a Valsalva maneuver, you squeeze with your abdominal muscles that squeeze the contents of the abdomen, which push up on the diaphragm and push it up into the chest cavity. Meanwhile, your chest muscles can be squeezing your rib cage in order to build up that air pressure. But there's also great pressure on the abdominal muscle, the contents of the abdomen. One of the things in the abdominal cavity is your rectum, and that may contain things that you don't want to get squeezed out, because you don't want to make an accidental bowel movement while you're lifting weights and doing a Valsalva maneuver, for example. So when you do the Valsalva maneuver, the puborectalis muscle contracts and pinches off the bottom of the rectum. And since everything in the Valsalva mechanism is neurologically coordinated, if you were to relax the puborectalis muscle, you'd relax the whole Valsalva mechanism. So there's two things we do. Once you feel the block you'll usually feel before you try to say the word, you feel that the word is blocked. You tense the PR muscle, the puborectalis muscle, in order to discharge that effort impulse rather than forcing with your mouth. And you inhale. Okay, when you inhale, you don't do Valsalva maneuvers. Inhale, and then you relax your puborectalis muscle and your abdominal muscles. They are parts of the Valsalva mechanism. And when you relax them, you relax the whole Valsalva mechanism. And that means you're not going to try to squeeze shut your larynx or to press and block the air with your mouth. So the two things we do with the puborectalis muscle is we discharge the effort impulse while we inhale, and then we relax the puborectalis muscle along with the abdominal muscles while we exhale. We let the air flow with no effort, no force, no blocking. We just bring the vocal folds together, we shape our mouth, and we voice the word with feeling. And the vowel sound is basically the part of the word we have to supply, because that's the part that's being suppressed. The rest of the word, we already have the motor program for them. So if I'm going to say Aberdeen, 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 the aber is not the problem. If I want to say Aberdeen, okay, I would tense my PR, inhale, I'm shaping I relax my PR, my abdomen, Aberdeen, Aberdeen.
That actually brings me nicely onto the question. I was going to ask you, what is Valsalva relaxed breathing? And my understanding is it's diaphragmatic breathing, but as you're breathing in, you tense the puborectalis muscle and then relax it as breathing out. And I think there's another element, which is having the tip of your tongue pressing against your bottom teeth. Is that correct?
That's not something that I do.
Okay. I don't know where I read that.
It is possible. Now, that probably had something to do, if it's something that I wrote, it was in the context of lowering your larynx.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
That had to do with lowering the
Yeah.
larynx. That's not something, this gets too complicated to have all these different things. When your larynx is low in your throat, it's less likely that you're going to use it to block the air. You know, it's way down low. All right. When you're blocking your air, it's usually higher up Okay, so like, for example, if I was going to say Aberdeen, it would be way up here. If I were to say Aberdeen, it'd be way down here. It'd be less likely to block it. The thing about pressing the tongue against your teeth was something that I read. It had to do with singing, and a person wanted to know, how to lower their larynx. And one of the methods, for some reason, was to press against your teeth with your tongue and get your larynx way down here. So now that would be a way to lower the larynx to prevent effort closure of the larynx, which usually would be up here instead of down here. So that's a separate thing. It has to do with the larynx. It has to do with reducing the tendency to block with the larynx. However, this is not necessarily a part of what we're doing. There's a lot of things we could do, but it gets too complicated to remember all these things. Now, with regard to the diaphragmatic breathing, that's just part of the breathing. It's nothing new with regard to the Valsalva stuttering therapy. You contract the diaphragm in order to enlarge your chest cavity. Because the diaphragm is at rest, it's in a dome shape, and you contract it and it flattens out. And that enlarges the chest cavity and it compresses your abdominal cavity. All right, so that's, and then you relax it and it goes back up. And you contract it, inhale, relax it as you let the air out. So that is something that you would just normally do anyways. The thing with regard to the puborectalis muscle, that has to do with discharging the effort impulse. Now, in the past, I experimented with a lot of different things to discharge the effort impulse. I mean, we were doing pinching and stuff like that to try to find a way to discharge the effort impulse without having it go to the lips or the tongue or the larynx. But I found that probably the most effective way is to focus on a part of the Valsalva mechanism itself, which would be the puborectalis muscle. And that does not interfere with speech, doesn't interfere with breathing. All it does is pinch off the rectum. So we tense that, and then we relax it. Now, when I first started to do these exercises on my own, I focused on relaxing the puborectalis muscle because I had read in the medical literature how the puborectalis muscle was involved in Valsalva maneuvers. And then I I didn't talk about it too much because people were, they didn't take it right. However, that's really important thing. So I went back to emphasizing it.
Bill, what I've learned from this is that if we can, first of all, eliminate and control the Valsalva mechanism, separated from speech, because to be frank, the Valsalva mechanism has no
Vowel
business.
sound, the vowel sound.
Yeah.
You feel a block.
Yeah.
The vowel sound.
Yeah.
Forget about the consonant.
Yeah.
The consonant you know how to do perfectly well.
What I was trying to say was that the Valsalva mechanism, in fact, I have the option of changing the word, but I won't. So the Valsalva mechanism itself has no, I can't say this word.
The vowel sound. Focus on the vowel sound. What is the vowel sound?
Eh,
Say it with feeling. Don't
eh,
even try to say anything. Yeah.
eh,
Yeah. Do it with
eh,
inflection. Yeah.
eh,
No,
eh. Business. The Valsalva mechanism has no business with speech.
right. The consonant
Mm, mm,
is just an opening for the vowel sound.
mm,
It's like I compare it to the automatic sliding doors at the entrance of a supermarket. Like the doors are closed. There's a little motion detector there. You approach and they open up and you walk in. Right?
mm.
They let you in. Imagine that you're the vowel sound. You're the I. Yeah. Okay, the doors are the B. Your lips are together. Yeah. All I do is open up. You can't say the B without the I.
Mhm.
Yeah. All right. Now, what if you reverse the mechanism and now the doors are open and you approach and they close? You force, but you can't get it open. You walk away. Oh, they open. Okay. I'll try it again. And they close. So you can't get in. You can't buy your food that you need to eat. The store doesn't get your money. So the store goes out of business. I mean, but that is basically what happens with people that stutter. It's like their lips are coming together, blocking the vowel sound. You're the vowel sound. You want to get through. The vowel sound expresses you. You are the vowel sound. You want to get through. You want those doors to open up. You can't even hear the B unless you have the vowel sound. Business, business, okay? Relax, resting position. Business, business.
What I'd like to ask you, Bill, is uh, do you can you recommend a daily routine which people can use to keep their Valsalva mechanism relaxed?
Oh yeah, I have a whole bunch of routines.
Yep.
Now the thing is, haven't I sent you that stuff?
Yes, you have sent me, but this is for the benefit of the audience, listeners and watchers.
Right, right. There's a bunch of things. There's a bunch of things you can practice. First thing has to do with the Valsalva relaxed PR breathing. And then there's the vowel phonation. I have the vowel phonation exercises. Okay, that's what you start off with until you get that down. You always do the Valsalva relaxed PR breathing. PR stands for pubital muscle. You always do that through all the exercises. Then you have the vowel phonation exercises where you're focusing on the vowel sound and shaping it and voicing it with inflection. For the purpose of the exercises, I use 4 vowels, a, e, u, and then we do different things with the pitch. And while you're doing it, you shape it as you inhale, and then you relax, bring your vocal folds together, remain in the same position in your mouth, ah, and then you can do it with rising pitch, falling pitch, up and down pitch, and then you do the same thing with a and e and oo, and you put them all together, I, oo. Right. Then we go through the consonant vowel. There's a whole exercise with regard to exactly what we were talking about. Okay, you form the consonant in a relaxed resting position, and you just focus on voicing the vowel. So it'd be like business, business. I'm not trying to say the B. I'm not trying to say the word at all. Your brain has all of the motor programs for saying the word, except the key vowel sound. because that's the part that's suppressed. So that's the part that you focus on with inflection and feeling. And we do that half an hour every morning. The morning is the best time to practice. And then we go on with more things. We have a speaking exercise we call speech, slow motion, extremely emotive speech. We start off exaggerated. You know, if you wanted to have a business, that's the melody and the movement. We stretch it out, and so we exaggerate the movement, and we exaggerate the inflection. And then we reduce that to moderate speech, which sounds natural. Business. But we're still doing the movement, we're still doing inflection, just not as exaggerated. Always in strict coordination with our Valsalva relaxed PR breathing. And so we practice that in various contexts. Are you there?
I'm here. Yes, I'm here. Listening was on mute, so I could. Yes, I'm here.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah, I'm here. Okay, Bill, that's very useful. We're gonna have to wrap things up now. We've got our next speaker on. If people want to reach you, the first question is, do you offer training? Do you offer coaching? Do you offer a structured course? That's the first question. And if someone wants to reach you and obtain one-on-one coaching with you, what's the best way to get you?
Okay. Yes, I do online therapy. And you can reach me at stutter therapy, one word, stuttertherapy at AOL.com. My website is stuttertherapy.com.
Okay. I'm going to have that website and email in the description of the video as well. So anyone who wants to see that. But yes,
right.
So
and I have a book which you can download. You can download the book. It's possible to buy it through my website.
Okay. Okay. And we'll just wrap things up. And Bill, on behalf of the subscribers and myself, we are really grateful that you're here, that you've shared your wisdom. It's been very enlightening, very useful, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
It's my pleasure, and where you are, it's already evening.
It is indeed. I'm just going to stop the recording now, and then we'll have a quick informal chat.
Okay.